Ark Invest talking Tesla and autonomy.
Tasha, I feel like a lot of details came out that maybe people were expecting at the Cybercab event. What did you take away from Tesla's call?
Yeah, well, the stock had a strong reaction following the call, I think likely because people were pleasantly surprised by earnings, which beat expectations thanks to pretty aggressive cost reductions on the vehicle platform. They said they achieved a record cost of, it's like $35,100 per vehicle.
Now, if I had to guess, and that's all it is, I suspect the surge in Tesla stock up over 20% in a single day following earnings was entirely on the back of gross automotive margins and or declining cost of goods sold, e.g. Tesla figuring out how to make their vehicles for a lot less. Two sides of the same coin. Nothing at all to do with autonomy, which, as I've said in the past, the profits from autonomy is going to make Tesla's entire automotive business and energy business look like a rounding error. And as a reminder, Ark Invest's 5-year fair valuation for Tesla, $2,600 per share, roughly 10 times its current price, predominantly on the back of autonomy. I think roughly 90% of that figure coming from the Robotaxi business.
So that's, I think, what the street was the most focused on. What we've been very focused on, of course, is autonomy. And Sam, you've been focused on, the humanoid robots further down the line. I think at the We Robot event, and we've talked about this quite a bit internally, I felt like there was an expectation for them to reveal a lot more detail than came out. But I mean, if you look at past product releases, it wasn't, I think, too much of a difference there, the We Robot event versus others. So, clearly they were waiting for more of an investor type event to talk about those details, or maybe strategically they want to keep more close to their chest now that they're actually close to launching. So the big news is that we found out that Tesla is actually testing a ride-hail platform right now in California and that they have plans to launch it next year. Sounds like they're going to launch it with safety drivers. Not too much of a surprise. They stated that certain states have regulation over that. I guess California has a regulation where you need a safety driver at first, and then you need to pass some threshold of time or miles before you can pull that person out of the car. Unclear exactly what the laws are in Texas. My guess is they're more lenient. I know there are more hoops to jump through in California. But what does this mean? Well, we've been saying that for some time, even if Tesla were to take a while to solve for full autonomy, or let's say take a while to get regulatory approval for a fully autonomous taxi service, they could start a human-driven ride-hail service. And then they actually already have a better cost structure than the average Uber car in the vehicle, because we know that electric vehicles are, roughly a third of the price on maintenance and operating costs. So there's a lot of strategic, tactical reasons to do so. It seems like that's the way that things are going to go in the early days anyways. And then it's just a question of when are they going to take the driver out? So we've been saying 2025, 2026, roughly 60-40 probability there. Seems like that's still in play based on the announcement. So pretty exciting.
It's such a strange clown world that the Wall Street analysts tend to live in. The We Robot autonomy event, tumbleweed, stock collapses after the event, despite the fact that Tesla themselves unveiled a huge amount of very important detail and clarification around timing, the Robotaxi service, cost per mile over the long term. Tumbleweeds, in fact, worse than tumbleweeds. The stock implodes. Yet a few weeks later, gross automotive margins improve, stock surges. Many years ago, closer to a decade ago actually, Ark Invest, with their long-term predictions on the launch of Tesla Robotaxis, were overly optimistic. That makes two of us actually. In 2021, when I first published my Tesla valuation model, my estimate for Tesla Robotaxi first paid fares in a Tesla vehicle operating autonomously were late 2024. Now, technically, that is still possible, but Tesla now have told consumers that they believe, and it is just an estimate, that the first Tesla Robotaxis will actually begin operating in 2025. This will be via a software update in Model 3s and Model Ys, most likely first in California and or Texas, and then more states toward the end of the year. Volume production of their dedicated Cybercab is 2026, not initial production, volume production, meaning that this thing is likely to enter production, I'm guessing, later in 2025, as in next year. This is a hugely important moment. Prior to now, there was a huge amount of uncertainty, but Tesla's actions speak much louder than words. The fact that they've been testing this ride-hailing app for a year, that they've finished the design of the dedicated Cybercab, and that it will be entering production, most likely later next year, and Tesla explicitly stated their goal of having that thing in volume production in 2026, clearly indicates that they themselves believe they're on the cusp of autonomy. Never mind their statements on the most recent earnings call and the statements at their We Robot event. They believe the first Tesla robotaxis are happening next year. And the reason that I'm underscoring this is it's not previously just, oh, well, you could drive from one side of the United States to the other, maybe a year from now. It's in these particular states, we expect that we will have regulatory approval. And it's probably going to be more difficult in, say, California than Texas. And likely by the end of the year, there'll be even more states. So the level of minutia and detail here now, it's not just big picture, we're thinking we'll solve autonomy within a year. It's, okay, we're confident enough now, we're looking at the data, we're seeing the interventions per mile, that we actually believe, at least in Texas and California next year, and probably some other states toward the end of the year, we'll be operating some robotaxis. Excuse the pun here, but this is where the rubber meets the road. Believe you me, folks, Tesla would not have unveiled the dedicated Cybercab two-seater vehicle, the robotaxi design, if they didn't believe that it would genuinely be in volume production in 2026. And the only reason that you would be making a vehicle in high volumes that doesn't have a steering wheel or pedals is if you believe by then you will absolutely, well and truly, have solved autonomy.
And then I feel like other tidbits that came out, confirmation of drivetrain efficiency goal of 5.5 miles per kilowatt hour. That's pretty meaningful, especially when you pair that with battery cost declines and, in theory, what they can manufacture the Cybercab for. I think, they said, was it $30,000? Less than $30,000 is what they said. When we're looking at it very crudely, maybe this could be as low as $15,000 to $20,000 to manufacture. Still doing active work there. Any other surprises from your side, Tasha, or Nick? Anything the Threads folk want to point out as being fake or holes in the report?
I have one question because it relates to me personally, but I know there was news on Hardware 3 and its ability to actually use this new capability with FSD. So what's the deal there? First? We'll start there.
A little bit of history there. They've gone back and forth a bit. So we know that, to date, software releases tend to happen. The latest software tends to happen on Hardware 4 vehicles, and then Hardware 3 vehicles get it later, especially with the latest versions of the full self-driving software suite, specifically everything 12.5, which was a major update, and further. Then Tesla said that they were, moving towards this one model approach. I spoke with some people at the We Robot event, and the explanation was, okay, it's actually easier to do this with an end-to-end system. And I say one model for both Hardware 3 and Hardware 4 vehicles. At the We Robot event, Elon said, he didn't want to get into the details of Hardware 3 and 4. So I had speculated, okay, it seems like it's still probable based on what we've seen that they start with Hardware 4, and it looks like that's what they're doing. So it's not too surprising. And to give you the numbers, it's like roughly 6 million cars globally, Hardware 3 and Hardware 4, like not quite, but rough, let's call it 50-50 split, really roughly. And then about like half of that 6 million is in the US. So they still have quite a few cars on the Hardware 4 platform if they want to start there. And then the plan is, again, to kind of basically, because the inference chip on Hardware 3 has different like power memory limits than Hardware 4. They have to change the model and basically compress the model a little bit to make it backwards integratable. And then Elon said, if that doesn't work, that then they would swap out the hardware system. And so they've been building the cars for a while now, since like the early days of Tesla making their own inference chip and switching from NVIDIA, where there's like a panel on the car that pops out that you can actually swap out that inference.
Now, this is a very important point. In the worst case scenario, if Tesla is unable to get the FSD model to run on the older hardware, they can literally swap out, free of charge, the inference computer in the vehicles. Literally plug and play. So Tesla's already accounted for this scenario. However, I would be absolutely shocked if they're not able to get FSD running on older forms of hardware in the fullness of time. In essence, the latest versions of the FSD computer, it's essentially a bigger brain. This may be stating the obvious, but I'm sure everybody listening is aware that there are people who can drive a car that have an IQ of 170, 60, 150, 140, 130, 120, 110, 190, 85, probably even a little bit below that. Does this mean that everyone's equally capable of driving? No. But as long as the computer has a sufficient capacity at a fundamental level to run the software it shouldn't be an issue. That being said, there is no doubt the latest versions of hardware will be first to run the software and a little more capable. I think there's a lot of Tesla skeptics whose own inference compute isn't capable of understanding this.
Chip. So while it sounds, complicated, they've planned for this, many years ago, in case they need to do that. So, if as a Hardware 3 owner, you might not be the first to sign your vehicle up for the platform. Certainly gives you, some incentives to maybe use the Tesla incentives to switch over to Hardware 4 if you wanted to. I think longer term, they have enough cars on Hardware 3 where they're going to want to make it work, as I said. So I think that they'll make it work somehow. It's just a question of how.
That's right.
I completely agree. And maybe an analogy, I'm sure there's a lot of people watching who happen to be gamers, and you'll all understand. A new game comes out, you may not have the absolute best of the best top-line PC and graphics card, but you can probably run the new game. You just need to tinker the settings a little bit. This analogy applies to Tesla vehicles running the latest software on older hardware.
Right, Nick, just use Tasha's referral code and get yourself into a new car. Also, I think pulling off of the work that Tasha's done and thinking about it, right? It's until they get full unsupervised self-driving, it's fine. They don't need to replace the vehicles. They're going to keep doing what they're doing. When they do have that capability, the market opportunity that this unlocks, right? You've got Uber and Lyft drivers paying $2 a mile. Tesla came out in their call. They said, 30 to 40 cents. The work that Tasha's done suggests as low as 25 cents per mile. And so you've got 1 trillion miles at $1 per mile revenue opportunity, right? At like that price point. And so if you're offering a $1 price point, you're undercutting Uber and Lyft. If you can offer that for 30 to 40 cents times 1 trillion, I think you have enough cash flow there to put a computer back into a old car.
Yes. And actually, so you're citing, we've dimensioned the market by price point, and there's some market at Uber and Lyft pricing today. It's like under 200 billion roughly in market opportunity at like the $2 to $4 price point. Then there's like a big portion of the market that, we've done some analysis based on how people value their time. And it kind of makes sense if you look at the average cost to drive your own vehicle in the US as well at around $1 in Western markets. And then globally, like once you expand below $1, then markets like China are in play. China, we had it at 50 cents. It actually looks like it's closer to 30 cents per mile. Prices have come down a little bit for ride hail there. So actually the total global opportunity is over $10 trillion. And yes, the further you move below that $1 price point, which is like a big linchpin to open up this opportunity, the more that market opportunity grows to be much greater than what Uber and Lyft occupy today.
I got to admit, I'm kind of desensitized now. When you hear $10 trillion, it's like, yeah, I know. But the scale, the magnitude of that opportunity, we're talking revenue here. Let me put this in context. Tesla today, this year, will do roughly, and this is really rough, just nice round numbers, $100 billion in revenue with decent profit margins, but not exactly software-like. If you 10x that, you're at $1 trillion. If you 10x that again, you're now at $10 trillion. The opportunity that Ark have just described with autonomy over the long term, as cost per mile comes down, is 2 orders of magnitude larger than Tesla's entire business today. And that's just the revenue opportunity for people paying per mile to use a robotaxi service. That does not at all include software subscriptions, vehicle sales, licensing deals. It's just the revenue opportunity for people paying per mile to use a robotaxi service. That's 100 times what Tesla's going to do in revenue in 2024. And obviously, Tesla will not capture 100% of this opportunity. I personally believe that they will capture the majority of the profits in autonomy. I mean, does anyone know any other companies that already have experience producing roughly 2 million vehicles per year who, a little over 12 months for now, expect to be in volume production of a dedicated robotaxi, who've also disclosed that they intend to produce at least 2 million a year, possibly 4 million of these things per year? The broader point that I'm getting at here, again, is just to remind everybody that Tesla stock went fucking ballistic over an improvement in gross automotive margins, but it imploded when they provided an incredible update regarding their plans for autonomy. Make it make sense.
We should start posting this on Threads, because I can tell you that is not what they think on that platform.
Hey, spoiler alert, every single person who uses Threads, they don't think, period. They just don't think. They emote, but no thinking.
Say, if you were to take all of the people that were involved in Tesla Q back in 2018, 2019, they have all made their way over to Threads, and they were very unhappy with the report in the way that things shaped up.
In the way that Tesla Q was while they were on X.
I mean, I would say the general commentary from them is it's all smoke and mirrors, a lot of talk, little execution, continuing to push out dates. And, the hardware 3, hardware 4, they go back and, take Elon at his word from his comments many years ago, and now are saying, look, he's lying, or he lied, and now he's trying to cover, and you'll never have this capability, which is unfortunate that there's a percentage of the population that doesn't believe in the story.
So I got a question. It's a serious question, by the way. What will happen first? Tesla completes their first paid robotaxi fare somewhere on Earth, or a single self-identifying member of Tesla Q finally manages to move out of their parents' basement and get a place of their own?
Yeah, I think that, and we've talked about this before, it's really hard to predict the day when an AI breakthrough will happen. You can absolutely say that Elon's been kind of aggressive in his targets. You could also argue that optimism or aggression and setting those targets is what has helped Tesla achieve what they achieved today. But I would even zoom out and every automaker said that they'd make an autonomous car by 2019. So I don't think Tesla's alone in this overt optimism here. It's just maybe they're a lot more public and a lot more granular with their targets, which has led to more criticism. I think the real question is
that's a great point, Tasha.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a huge point that people miss. It's like Tesla's just the one that hasn't quit.
But they're also the only company that's charged for it. I think that's what people on Threads would, the bear argument is, yes, everyone made promises, but only one company actually took, in revenue off of those promises.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I'd argue that it's you're charging for a driver assistance feature that arguably is the best on the road. I mean, certainly feature wise has the most. And, all the other automakers that offer hands-free driving, that's all geofence. That's certain roads. It's not, and Tesla didn't want to choose that geofence sort of confined strategy, which is what's made it, arguably a difficult problem to solve. But I think it's we believe that they'll get there in terms of hands-free. So I think that, yes, you're paying for a future capability, but you're also, you're paying for your car to get better overnight and for you to kind of have to put less energy in as a driver. Although, of course, you still have to pay attention today.
I know, Tasha, we didn't say we were going to discuss this, so feel free to punt on this. But with the Waymo raising money, and I don't know if you saw what Akash posted about some rumors still about the cost of those vehicles. What were you thinking when you saw that Waymo raised this $5 to $6 billion?
Well, we had heard that that Alphabet was going to invest $5 billion in Waymo. So, unsure exactly what the split is of internal versus external investment. To scale up a vehicle platform, if what I think is happening today, and we'll see what happens in the future, it's it looks like they purchased these vehicles from auto partners, or unclear what the split is. But in order to fund that, you do need billions of dollars to get to scale, because you want let's say 10,000 cars plus per city here just to even get started. I mean, Tesla's talking about having millions of cars. So if you believe them, you're likely thinking that you want to get to that scale sometime in the next 5 years, let's say, in order to just compete. So it's not too surprising to me. But, the other thing with Waymo that we don't know that could be really expensive for them is how often people are actually intervening in the ride, the remote operators. So they have this one line. They say, the remote operators might help the car as it travels across town. I think that was in LA, maybe when they announced that, but or maybe San Francisco. Either way, to me, that sounds like if it was infrequent, they would just say it's infrequent. So I have a feeling that it's still frequent-ish. And that can be very expensive on a per mile basis, depending on how.
Yes, there's a lack of transparency around Waymo and how many interventions and what counts as an intervention. The good thing about Tesla, from an investor's point of view, is we can see people driving the vehicles, driving with FSD beta engaged We can see how often they intervene. We have no idea what it's like behind the scenes for Waymo. Nor do we have any idea about their cost structure other than the fact that it appears that they're spending over $100,000 per vehicle on roads, never mind the extremely high salaries for engineers, teleoperators involved in the whole... Let's just boil this down real simply, okay? Tesla sells vehicles to customers, makes thousands of dollars per vehicle sold, and the customers train the software for free after paying Tesla thousands of dollars and Tesla making thousands of dollars in profits. They've got close to 7 million vehicles on roads now, and it's growing rapidly. And they made a profit selling every one of those vehicles. Waymo has to spend $100,000 or more buying a vehicle from someone else. If you didn't know anything else, you would know that Waymo's fucked if they're pursuing the same opportunity as Tesla. If that's the only thing you knew, the cost structures are completely different. And we see Waymo raising another $5 billion. That's a lot of autonomous rides required to recoup that new investment. And it'd be one matter if Waymo wasn't competing on the same planet as a company maybe you've heard of them, called Tesla, going after the exact same opportunity, but they are. Look, pro tip, by the way, folks, if you're ever leading a company and Elon Musk gets involved in your industry going after the same opportunity, just give up, throw in the white towel and say, look, okay, fuck it. We're going to lose now. Let's just, it's good while it lasted, folks. We quit. Honestly, because it's inevitable. A Musk-led company, whatever they're doing, is going to outcompete you in the fullness of time.
How many, labor personnel or cost you're going to add on to it. So, I think it's good for Waymo that they're really dedicating resources to this. And hey, let's face it, they have a real platform. I mean, you can ride an autonomous car today thanks to them. So I think they're, definitely a company that should be considered here. I just think until we see those contracts get executed in terms of them porting, thousands, 10,000s of cars on the road, I think it looks like it's going to be tougher for them to scale if Tesla is close at all.
Great. Any last takeaways?
Well, a couple of things on the call that, we didn't get to in our newsletter, and I recommend everyone reads our newsletter. We said that we didn't say that we heard about full self-driving on the Semi for the first time. So, we have a number of autonomous truck players. Tesla hadn't really talked about it before, but we had always assumed they were working on it. And this is that confirmation. So I also thought that was another exciting piece of news there and I don't know, what do you think, Sam? Elon, he mentioned flying cars again. I know there's been a lot of back and forth. Okay, will he consider other vehicle types? Seems like he's got enough to focus on today, but what do you think for the future?
Yeah, I think that was mainly a comment with some creative use of rocket booster in the new Roadster. So maybe something along those lines. I mean, I think launching Robotaxi and Optimus are certainly grand enough achievements for the near to medium term. And I think we even heard it on the call. Everyone wants to work on the Roadster because it's probably the craziest, coolest engineering problem out there, but you got to tackle the big market opportunities first.
I'm glad this point came up. When I heard Musk mention in passing, I think he was referring to a quote from Peter Thiel about the future having flying cars. I'm like, what the fuck, bro? Huh? I was very confused, too busy flipping out about all the other stuff. But this makes complete sense. He was obviously and inevitably referring to the Roadster, the cold gas thrusters, and its ability to at least temporarily, technically fly for brief periods of time. When I first heard that, I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't really think about it again. But yeah, this is totally what he was talking about. Here's a question. A serious question, by the way. What's going to happen first? The first flying car, a Roadster with cold gas thrusters temporarily taking off? Or the first Tesla Robotaxi fare? And just finally, I'm very curious, maybe even be specific and name a month. When do you guys think the first Tesla Robotaxi fare takes place? As in, Tesla's legally allowed to operate the Robotaxi somewhere and they have a paying customer. It's not just in a trial phase, a beta phase where people aren't paying, or a literal Tesla Robotaxi fare taking place the very first time. What's your best guess? Let me know in the comments below. Be good to see the wisdom of the crowd or the over-optimism of the Tesla fanboys and fangirls. I'll be very surprised if it isn't sometime in 2025, but I'm the same guy who was pretty confident that it would happen sometime in 2024 when I first started predicting this publicly back in 2021. Want more content? Early access? Bunch of perks? Click the links in the pinned comment. AG1 is awesome. I've been taking it daily now for more than 3 years. It's a great way to fill in nutritional gaps. It's packed full of vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients, plus has prebiotics, probiotics, and adaptogens to improve gut health, regularity, and help your body handle stress. I'm always looking for an edge to help me feel and perform my best, which is why I haven't missed a day of AG1 for more than 3 years. Just try it and see how you feel. Click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR and get yourself a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 travel packs. This is what viewers of the channel had to say after trying AG1. I feel like I have a lot more energy since I started on AG1. Just got my AG1 in the mail. Legit feeling the effects after day 3. 3 months ago, I started AG1 and have been enjoying the evenness of alertness and energy that lasts the day. I just started the wife on it too. Are you convinced yet? I mean, hey, it's worth trying, right? Click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR, or I can keep going. This viewer, after about a month on AG1, definitely a lack of fatigue in the afternoon. Pleasant side effect is that my coffee intake has imploded and is almost down to 0. One more? Yeah, why not? I honestly feel younger and will be continuing to use AG1. This stuff really is crazy good. I didn't think it would be, but this stuff is awesome. It really is what everyone is saying. One more? Don't mind if I do. I've just received my 3rd month supply. I've drank it every day. I have so much energy throughout most of the day. I'm productive, started a new business, started socializing, refurbished a boat. It's no coincidence. Thank you for your persistence, your integrity, and your insights. Now look, these are not my words. These are not my testimonials. This is what you guys and girls are saying. Maybe it's 100% placebo effect. But even if that's the case, I think it's money well spent. Click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR and get yourself a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 travel packs.